Hello, this is Coach Tim Campbell, and I'm your host for Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show, where we're talking with successful business owners to hear their stories of the journey of building a successful business. And because we know that achieving success in business is not something that we can do on our own, we recognize the folks that have helped us to excel. I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from the technology industry with us today. My guest has traveled the Lewis and Clark Trail with his wife from Virginia to Oregon and back to St. Louis by car, RV, on foot, and in a canoe. Wow. He enjoys playing in the creek in his backyard with his grandsons, and he has led a number of tech professionals that have moved into leadership positions. Please join me in welcoming Jeff to the show today. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks a lot, Tim. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, fantastic. Let's start with having you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of your personal story, where you were born, where you live now, about your family, and maybe some of your hobbies.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you named one of my hobbies or obsessions. Might be a better term with Lewis and Clark, but I'm Jeff Tunn. I've been involved in the tech community in Central Indiana for about 40 years now, a little bit more than that. I've been Indiana born and raised. Was born in West Lafayette and spent my elementary years in Lebanon, Indiana, right up the road from Indianapolis, and then high school in Evansville. A very short stint in Chicago for a year that felt like 10, and then came to Indianapolis in 1979, and have been here in Indianapolis ever since. And have two sons. I call them my bouncing baby boys because they're 43 and 38, and three wonderful grandsons, 9, 8, and 2, which the 2-year-old's a lot of fun to take down to the creek, as you were mentioning earlier. So my wife and I live here in Indianapolis on the northeast side, and just love being outdoors on our property.
Fantastic. So, Jeff, is there a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share today?
Well, the one that comes to mind goes way back, being family when I was a kid. When they would put me in my crib, I would sleep with my knees kind of tucked up under me, and my foot would just do this during the night. And so they called me Thumper after the rabbit. So that's probably the. I don't think I've told anybody that story in a long time.
And has that nickname traveled with you?
No, it kind of faded in. My siblings don't call me that anymore. They call me lots of other names, but not Thumper.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jeff, tell us about how the business came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could go out on your own?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I have the confidence yet. So I wrote a book in 2018. So my business launched around that time, really as a platform for the book, for writing and speaking related to topics about the book. And I spent a couple of years building that, right? Very slowly. I was an executive for a tech company, and so was really kind of doing both gigs, right? The side hustle, as everybody loves to call it, right? And the pandemic, when it came about in early 2020, really was the crossroads for me. I was considering doing Ton Enterprises on a full-time basis anyway at that time, and we were looking at ways from an organization that we could cut some costs. So we were going to have a little bit of a reduction in force related to the pandemic. And I went to our CEO and the board and said, why not me? And they said, okay. So we negotiated a nice little runway, and it enabled me to launch this business. And they, in fact, became my first client.
Oh, great.
As a result. So it has been nothing but an upward trend since the first part of 2020. So a couple of years plus now, and doing really well.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit more about Ton Enterprises. What do you guys do?
Well, my sales coach tells me that I have way too many service lines. And I just tell her, well, no, I really have adult ADHD. So I do writing and speaking. That's still a foundational piece of what I do. Wide variety of platforms for both of those things. I run workshops based on leadership development, predominantly in the tech community, since that's my background. I have some advisory services. I have 4 corporate clients that I work with on, believe it or not even really anything related to technology itself. After spending 40 years in technology, I help them with some of the other things like vendor partner ecosystems and advisory boards and things like that. And then I also do podcast as a service. I started doing that. I host a podcast and have done that for several years now for one of my clients, for Intervision. And we now do that as a service for other organizations, which is a lot of fun. So that, and I run the Indy CIO Network that you may be familiar with, Tim. It's a group of about 300 Central Indiana IT leaders, chief information officers, and others.
Wonderful. So you don't have too many product lines. You're just keeping yourself, with different options every day.
That's right. That's right. I kind of got used to that in the corporate world. As an executive, you move from meeting to meeting to meeting, and they're all different topics, and they're all different things that are going on. So you get used to switching those hats and move along. And that's just kind of the way I love my day, right? It's different. Every day is different, and every hour is different.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Jeff, share a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it on your own, and what was the impact that had on you?
So, Jenny Robbins of Ignite Development is a business coach for expert businesses, which is kind of the category that Ton Enterprise falls in, right? Because my knowledge, my experience is the product that we sell. And I hired Jenny back probably in 2019, I think, to help me think through what this would look like if I did do it full time. And she helped me define kind of the why me. Why would someone hire Jeff to do X, Y, or Z? Which was really instrumental. But what really happened after that is I joined her mastermind group. And this was a group of other peers that were starting expert businesses. And that group, really, it was kind of interesting because I was thinking throughout the first several months of meeting that they would be pushing me to take this jump, to take this step, right? And quite the opposite. They were giving me permission to stay doing what I was doing both roles without having to take that jump. So it kind of took the pressure off. I thought these peers would be, no, you've got to do this. You've got to do this. And they were like, do it when you're ready. And I tell you, I still, 2 years later, we still get together occasionally and talk individually, one-on-one with the folks that were in that mastermind. And it was just a huge step to have peers that were kind of going through the same thing. Yeah. And we could exchange ideas, exchange bumps in the road, and hear each other's story. It was incredibly helpful in me having the confidence that, yeah, I can really do this.
Yeah. Being a business owner can be very lonely. So having that network to be able to bounce ideas off of, right? And share the things that maybe we're afraid of sharing because we don't want to be judged, when we've got a safe environment to just spill that out of our mouth. It sometimes that can be just enough to allow us to think again because we're not stressed over whatever is burdening us.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. My cat gets tired of me talking to her about my business.
Yeah, and their advice is not very strong, right?
No, it isn't. They just kind of turn their nose up and walk away.
So, Jeff, what's your biggest learning as a business owner?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question, because there's so many lessons that I've learned. I'd say the biggest one, the most impactful one for me was how to gain the confidence to talk to colleagues that I've known for years, but from the other side of the desk, right? And I always looked at it as sales. And what I learned through my sales coach and Jenny and others was, you're not really selling, you're just having a conversation. And you go into it with this conversation of what problems are they seeing, what are some of their challenges, and you start talking about how they might attack that. And pretty soon you've got, hey, why don't you come in and help us with that? And to me, that was probably the best learning experience I had, because this is the third business that I've tried to start in my career. The other two fizzled out pretty quickly because I always said I hated sales, and I wasn't good at it. And what I learned was it's really just that conversation, and that conversation leads to opportunities.
I love that perspective. I also had that, that fear of selling, and my coach said, you're not selling, you're coaching somebody to make a decision that's right for them.
Yes.
And that same as you just described, in my head, the light bulb switched and said, oh, well, I can have conversations.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's easy. We do that all day long anyway. I've just been amazed at where these conversations lead, right? It may be you're having coffee or having lunch with somebody and just having a conversation, and weeks later, even months later, the phone rings or you get an email that says, hey, could you come in and help with this?
Yeah. Isn't that interesting that, we might walk out of an initial conversation a little discouraged because we didn't close the deal. But I've had ones where it's been a year later and they're like, hey, I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly. It's, and I guess what I learned through that process is I'm not trying to close the deal. I'm just having a conversation, and I love the way your coach put it. You're coaching them to make a decision, and so we bounce ideas, and it's been really rewarding to hear some of that come back months later.
Another fun way for me to think about it is we're just planting seeds, right? And then we nurture those seeds, and some will sprout right away. Some won't sprout till next year, but we don't give up on them, because, if we've had that great initial conversation, then we've got to keep nurturing that seed, and someday it's going to sprout.
I totally agree. And I think the other aspect of it is in the stage I am in my career. I don't have the pressure of trying to build $1 million business that's going to last for 15, 20 years, right? I've got a nice business. It generates a good revenue stream. I have a great set of clients. I was out in Austin yesterday with one of my clients, and we just had a wonderful 5 hours together working through some of the problems that organization, some of the challenges that they're facing. And I just come away from that feeling really good. It's a great place to be.
Fantastic. Jeff, so we all know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. And so I'd love to hear about your biggest challenge during the years, and a fellow business owner who came alongside you and helped you through that.
Wow, I tell you, you may know Jason Barnaby, Tim,
Yeah.
local here to Indianapolis, and I'd say Jason, through his friendship, getting together every once in a while for coffee or for lunch at our favorite Brew Burger. You know, that's always a great lunch. But Jason, with his energy, it's infectious, right? And when you're feeling the grind, or you're feeling down because something didn't work out the way you thought it would, talking to Jason is, man, it's just this shot of adrenaline that gets you back going again. And I enjoy that. And I'm going to give you a shout out too, Tim, because the way we started our call this morning, man, you were just upbeat, full of energy, and I was feeling a little bit tired because it was a late night getting in from Austin last night, and it was just a jolt that I needed. So thank you for that. But those are the kinds of things that I think a lot of our colleagues, or a lot of our peer business owners, may not even know how they're being helpful. Right? It's just it's a conversation with Jason Barnaby. It's a conversation with Beth Rashley. It's these people that have experiences. They may be sharing a down moment that they're having in their business. And you're able to, as a peer business owner, you're able to help them, which helps you. I love that little community. And I guess that's probably the biggest gift that I've received through this process is, after spending 40 years in IT, my network was a bunch of people from IT,
Sure.
as you might imagine. And launching this business, I have met so many amazing business owners that it's almost like a little club,
Yeah.
right? And Alex Perry from Practically Speaking, and Stephanie Crevens, and just so many amazing people.
You mentioned when somebody might share when they're down. Isn't it interesting that, when we look at social media, people tend to only talk about the positive and the wins, but I find it so helpful, right, to hear when somebody else is having a struggle, right? Because then it's like, oh, good, because I have struggles too, and now we can come together and talk through it, and to your point, encourage one another and share some tips and tricks on how to get through that.
Well, it's, as you were saying earlier, as a business owner, it can be kind of lonely, right? But we're not really alone. We've got this peer group that it can be just so uplifting and help us talk through problems and challenges. And hey, how would you approach this, or how would you approach that? And it sometimes you just have to remind yourself that you are not alone. You've got the people around you.
Yes. So, Jeff, you mentioned a few people already, but if you had to pick 3 people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for being there for you and helping with your business growth, who would those 3 people be, and how did they help you?
Well, I'm gonna go back a couple of years and call out Dr. Dan Miller. Dan was my executive coach for about 7 years while I was still in the corporate world, and through Dan's one-on-one coaching with me, I would say that he helped build the foundation of who I am and what I do. He enabled me to grow in my career, provide a lot of confidence through our conversations and growth. So Dan, number one, from an executive development perspective. Jenny Robbins, who I mentioned earlier, with the foundational piece of understanding what the product was, right? What are we selling? Why would someone hire Jeff Tunn to help them with X, Y, or Z, and get over this thing of, hey, I'm selling myself, which is always awkward, right? And so I big shout out to Jenny for that. And then I mentioned Alex Perry. Alex is a speaking coach, among some other great things. And I tell you, I have learned more about public speaking, keynotes, presentations. I've learned more about that from her than just about any single person over the last several years. And it really took my craft that was, call it, B minus public speaking, and turned it into an A. And just really helped me understand the audience and understand my message.
Fantastic. That is awesome. So, Jeff, as you think about the next 3 to 5 years, what are the biggest challenges that you see in achieving your business goals, and who are the type of people you're going to need to help you with those challenges?
Well, I think for me, the challenges are, with a lot of business owners, keeping that pipeline steady, right? It's, you look at your portfolio of business as a business owner, and, if you lost that client or you lost that client, what would you do to recover from that, or build back in that space? And so for me, it's talking with other business owners in the medium, mid-enterprise space about their technology, and more specifically about their technology leadership and how I might be able to help. Whether that's through, I do some one-on-one coaching with leaders in the technology space, but like yesterday, I was leading a challenge discussion. We had a list of challenges that the organization was facing. And we spent time dissecting the challenges. So those are the types of things that I can help businesses with. So keeping a steady stream of those conversations going, so that the revenue kind of stays level for the next 3 to 5 years.
Fantastic.
And then I'm going to spend the rest of the time after the 5 years hanging out with my grandkids.
I love it. Fantastic. So Jeff, one of my favorite authors is Jim Rohn, and a quote that he says, I've kind of fell in love with, is that we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So as you reflect on that, is that something that you find exciting, or something that makes you nervous from a business standpoint?
I find that very exciting. And, my closest friend, my closest confidant is my wife, Carmen. And so she's one of those 5 people, right? And I learn a lot from her as well. I get a lot of encouragement for my business through her as well. She is my sounding board, not really my cat. I spend more time talking to my wife than my cat. But, you think about the people that you interact with on a frequent basis. And I'm excited by Rohn's comment, right? That you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Because if I look at each one of those people, they each bring an amazing skill or an amazing attribute. And if I can learn that from them, that's, I have this passion for continuous learning. And if I can learn from those that I associate with, I'm loving it.
That's awesome. And the great thing about that principle is it doesn't have to be people that we're physically spending time with, right? We can go to a seminar or watch a podcast, or or read a book, and surround ourselves with other people that we aspire to be like.
Absolutely. You can, I love that you mentioned book. I'm reading a book that a friend of mine has written, and it's going to be published here, I think in May or June. And I am learning so much from this book that he has written. He's a friend of mine that I don't see very often. He's in Seattle, so we're not physically close where we see each other, but we jump on calls every once in a while. And I have learned so much from him. And now that I'm reading this book, I can see where some of his wisdom has come from through the stories that he tells in the book. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, I love it. So just wrapping up here, Jeff, if there was something catastrophic that happened in your business today, who's the first person you'd reach out to, and what would that conversation be?
Well, the first person I would reach out to is my wife, because we're kind of in this together. She's my accountant, my bookkeeper, my confidant. So that would be the first conversation about, okay, now once the emotion of the catastrophe has worn off, what do we do? How do we regroup? And then I'd start reaching out to some of the folks in my professional network. Some of them business owners, some of them not. But you surround yourself with a group of mentors. I love the concept of having a personal board of directors. Right. And they may not even know they're sitting on the board of directors. Right. But, I'd reach out to Jeff Dodson or Glenn Keller or some of the other people whose opinions and thoughts I respect and trust, and start to put together an action plan.
I love it. I love that thought of, they don't even know that they're on my board of directors, right? But yeah, we do have folks who we come to rely on and trust their opinion, and they're our go-to people. And so that's awesome. If all the folks that you mentioned today were here on the show with us, it sounds like you've been incredibly blessed with some incredible people. So if they were all here on the show with us today, what would you want to say to them?
Thank you. Oh my goodness, thank you. Especially the ones that don't know they're on my board of directors, right? Thank you for the wisdom. Thank you for the friendship. It's funny, Tim, that a lot of times I'm having coffee with them virtually or face to face or lunch, and a lot will say, "Well, how can I help you?" And my answer usually is by doing this. Yeah. Just meeting me for coffee, meeting me for lunch. There is so much benefit out of that. That just carving out the time, because I know they're busy as well. And the gift of an hour for a coffee meeting or hour and a half for lunch, to me, that's a huge gift. And I appreciate every one of them in doing that.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. I appreciate you sharing your insights with me and the audience, and giving up of your time today.
Tim, I've really enjoyed it. When I got your note about this series that you were doing, I thought, what a great series to talk about how others have helped us get to where we are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. For everyone who's tuned in, thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsell. Be sure to help us spread this movement by liking the show and posting it on your social media. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Make sure to pay it forward, and I'll see you next time. Take care.